Perfect. All right, sorry. It's got to pop up that it's being recorded. Yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay.
Anyone else with comments on that item A from the board?
If you haven't heard Joe Minicozy speak, you really have to hear him. He makes redevelopment and urban development and renewal very exciting. At least
yes,
for planner needs.
And it's a complex subject. So I hope even if you can't be there on the Zoom call, which I plan on being, I hope people will watch or after the fact. Yes. And thanks for setting that up, Joan.
Absolutely. And then also please mark your calendars for the important Gulfstream meeting that the city will be hosting at the casino starting at 6 o'clock that night. That meeting will also be on Zoom for those of you who cannot or don't want to be in attendance. At our last meeting, Brent asked about the village flats and the difference in the construction cost going from multifamily to a townhouse project. So originally Village Flats, which will be built on a number of lots on both Lake and Lucerne, was going to be, phase one was going to be a multifamily building that was going to have approximately 30 units. And then there was going to be some other scattered sites that had some other units that were going to be, I believe, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Soon after the election and after listening to our new commissioners and as well as the public, Tim Carey and his group at Inhabit went back and decided that they would they thought it would be better to have a less dense project and do a townhouse project similar to the ones that we've done here with the Urban Lofts and West Village that has potentially some workspace on the bottom, not exclusively for artists. And some of them potentially will be for sale. And so we were changing our development agreement from a multifamily, I believe in total about a 42 multifamily unit project that was 4 stories to a townhouse project with a max of 3 stories on it, and going from 40 units or 42 units down to 17 units. And I just wanted to let the board know that they've been pricing, trying to price the project out for the last month, and the bids are coming in for the total project somewhere between 7.75 million and 8.5 million. And so we bought the properties for a total of 1.4 million. Of that, $750,000 was line of credit funds, and the rest of it was NSP. So with an investment of $750,000, we'll be getting back approximately an $8 million project that will have both rental and some single family home ownership in the area. And some of those will actually also need to be below 120 area median income. So I hope that answers your question, Commissioner Whitfield. Last but not least, an update on.
Sorry, Joan. I just want to pause for a second. Brent, does that answer your question from the last meeting?
Sorry, I was on mute. So really my question was about the original. So I think it's a good investment either way, but the question was, we had committed a certain amount of money for whatever it was, 30 units, and now that same amount of money is going towards less units. And I just wanted to make sure
the project costs are actually increasing.
Okay, if you compared it to what we would normally fund per unit, I guess, how does it look?
Okay, ask me a hard question.
Well, I just asked that, and again, I think at the last meeting, I know at the last meeting, part of my public comment was, I saw the other proposal that wasn't any good, that Tim had provided the best and most responsive plan, and that also that responding to the community was a good thing for him and for all of us, and the density that he's selected is good. I guess in my mind, I'm just trying to figure out, like, the amount we supported the mid was probably much less per dwelling than this is. How much is this compared to something like what we did across the street with the Renaissance folks, or the other things we've done on the CERN? I'm just kind of trying to imagine.
Yeah, so for West Village, for example, they got the land from us. We also gave them a grant of $700,000 of NSP money, and the project cost came between about $4 and $5 million. So with this one, they're getting the land, and the land total cost was 1.4 million. Of that, $750,000 was CRA funds. The rest of it was grant funds, and they're giving us an $8 million project.
Okay. Yeah, I support it. I think in my mind, I'm trying to get a sense of how much are we supporting per unit, or like what is the return on our invested dollar for housing? Like to me, a lot of the problem with affordable housing is there's just not enough housing for people, and that's why the supply and demand drives the costs up. So when we have the opportunity to put in housing, we should. And when I'm comparing in my head how much of a return are we getting on our investment, one of the metrics I think that might be useful going forward is how much did we put in per dwelling unit we got back.
Gotcha.
Now, I'm not saying I want to change anything about the way Village Flats looks, but when we switched from how many units they were originally proposing to how many units they're now building, that metric changes in my head, and so I'm just trying to square up if that is still a good return for us. Obviously, it's a good thing for the community, but just as I guess, someone who's voting on using the public's dollars, I want to make sure, we're getting the best return.
Absolutely, absolutely, and yeah, we are getting much less units, and it was actually already approved. But I think moving forward, the less dense project will probably be better for this particular area of the city, especially when it comes to parking. Another thing is we did award them a TIF rebate, but they haven't figured out yet, due to costs, like I said, that were very hard to get, how many of these units will be for sale and how many will be for rent. Obviously, we wouldn't give TIF proceeds back, because if they're sold, then they're sold to a private owner. So in the long run, it will cost us less money, but I don't have those numbers yet to figure out. But once I do, I will certainly get those to you.
Joan, this is Carla.
Thanks, Joan.
I have a
Sure.
I'm sorry. As we move forward, we know that construction costs have been going through the roof. And I'm sure that investors are telling you that it's probably 3 times or 4 times more than it would have been, 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. How is that going to affect our ability to do business, in the future?
Well, it just makes things exceptionally hard. Construction costs have gone up, but also land costs have gone up. I can't tell you, I've just gotten the prices of some lots that have become available, particularly on Dixie Highway. And they're probably double what I would have expected them to be. So when you're dealing with that, and then you have obviously a height limit and a density limit, it makes it incredibly difficult to do even just a regular project. And I'm sure Mark can talk to this as well, let alone an affordable housing project, unless there's a lot of subsidy coming in from somewhere. And so far, with the money that Biden, has created all these new programs, and I was just reading over them today, there doesn't seem to be any specific funding for affordable housing as of yet. So it kind of leaves you with probably a tax credit project, but a tax credit project, you also need at least 55 units in order to make it work. So we're kind of in an interesting place where we need more density, we need perhaps a little more height, and we need more subsidy, and we need bigger lots. So it's kind of like the perfect storm that has come to us probably at the worst time when people need the most help. I can tell you, we are working very closely with the city and trying to help them with an affordable housing policy that will give more density to projects that do provide affordable housing. But I think both the city and the CRA, you know, perhaps working with the county or perhaps even by ourselves, need to come up with some kind of funding program if we're really serious about providing more affordable housing, because otherwise unless costs come down, and it doesn't seem like COVID seems to be going away, I really don't know how some of these projects are going to be funded without a substantial amount of subsidy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Is there anything else for Joan on this topic? I had a couple things to add, if not. I just wanted to say, yeah, Joan, that here's the equation, right? Like normally land costs keep rising, refurbishing of an old house, the insurance costs are rising. Unless you can essentially rebuild the entire thing and prove it out for both wind and flood and all of the openings. And then what the CRA is uniquely poised to do, and I've been excited in the past, and you talking about Anderson Carr doing some foreclosure combination assistance with the city's help, to get some affordable housing units in stock. I'm very excited about that. It becomes the equation starts to balance if someone like the CRA can do something like give the land for free, right? So then you don't have land costs, and then you have to construct something, but then you don't assume that construction costs are going to triple in 3 years or whatever they've done. This may be something to earmark, Brent and Carla, to your 2 points. We talked about a joint sort of visioning session with the city commission. This is a great topic, and honestly, we could talk for 10 hours about it, but if we scheduled 30 minutes to sort of talk big picture and then drill down into what we could do together collaboratively, I think it could be very powerful in the next year or two with some of the things that we're going to have rent relief that expires, right? You're going to have people who have struggled to pay a mortgage and fail, and unfortunately either need assistance or may end up in foreclosure. That needs to be a partnership, and that's a difficult equation. And yes, Madam Mayor, I see your hand. I'd love you to weigh in on that. You're muted at the moment.
I always do that. I was
I do it too.
The judge said, "I can't hear you." I'm like, I completely agree. The time has come, I think, for the city and the CRA to sit down and look at what we're, I love the mid. I have the Bohemian, what an exciting project that is. And I think it is time, a perfect time for the two groups to sit down and just as a workshop, just even like with food involved, just a nice conversation where we can just chat about it. And of course, in the sunshine. Because affordable housing really is just insane. I mean, the need for housing is really, really terrible. So yes, here's one thing. We are right in the middle of the budget. Picking the city manager, Gulf Stream. I'm a little busy right now. So I'm going to ask for a little bit of patience to let us get through the budget and the city manager and get the Gulf Stream, get a shovel in the dirt over there, right? So I agree with you completely. Just asking for time to say, let's put it off to, November, October, November. We have a kind of busy. So completely agree with you. And I have, of course, not spoken with the commissioners about it, but we all want affordable housing in the city, and we got to figure out a creative way to do it. There's a young man that's coming up to the city commission to give a little presentation. He's got an idea about another path to take for affordable housing. So I'm very encouraged actually to hear the CRA supporting the concept of affordable housing. It's a different focus than what you've done, the great work you've done on, on the big apartment. It's gorgeous. I was on 17th Avenue North the other day waiting for the train, just an anecdote, right? And waiting for the train, and a woman was sitting on the second little patio of her apartment at the mid. I rolled down my window and I'm like, how do you like living at the mid? And she says, I love it. I don't love the train, but I love my apartment. And I thought, what a great victory. And I mean, we had a great example with Deco Green where they, you know, they came to the commission and we said, how about this? How about that? And they went right to the city and said, you know what? Okay, we'll work with you on that. So partnerships are all about what this is. Relationships between people is all about what this is. So, and I think it would benefit all if the city commission and the CRA developed a closer relationship. So I completely agree with you, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Anyone?
Later on.
No, no, I didn't feel that way at all. Is there anyone else on the board on this topic? And Brent, I just wanted to make sure you clarified your question because that's how I understood it as well.
No, I'm good. Thank you, Mark.
Okay. All right, Joan. Sorry, please proceed.
Talk about collaborations, L&M. So we have been working with Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council on a full-blown charrette and a scope of services for that. Quite honestly, it came, the price came back more than I expected it to. It's about $140,000. And, you know, I thought a few things about that. One was that, you know, it's a lot of money for us to spend. And we've already spent so much money on all of these properties. But at the same time, if we try to, you know, cut back the scope at all, then some people might say, well, we haven't done a full real charrette and we haven't really gotten all the, you know, the public's feelings on this. Unfortunately, you know, the Delta variant has kind of thrown another anchor into this process. So in addition to, you know, things taking time, you know, with the last commission and COVID and then the lawsuit, you know, we've now been owning these properties for close to 2 years now. And although I feel like we definitely need to act quickly, I think there's, you know, a couple of things that we need to do first. So I've been talking to Treasure Coast about coming up with maybe some kind of alternative version that we could do that not necessarily is all in person. I don't know what September and October, you know, looks like as far as the Delta variant in South Florida for us, and whether people, even staff people at Treasure Coast or the CRA or the city are really going to want to meet, you know, and sit around tables with people. So we're working on an alternative scope. So we'll bring both of those back to you at our next meeting. In the meantime, I've been working with Mayor Rush, and she had the idea of bringing in like a structural engineer to really look at all of the buildings that we both own at this point, to try to really find out, you know, are they structurally sound, and how much potentially it would cost to bring those buildings back to, you know, to being code compliant. Because I think the cost of that, you know, obviously factors into what we decide moving forward. But at the same time, I think that we also need to have an understanding between all of us that if we do go forward with the charrette process and we get public input on this, are we really going to all agree to move forward with whatever scenario we end up with? I would hate for us to, you know, have spent all this money, both, you know, penny sales tax money and line of credit funds that we have that we also have to repay. And we end up with either no project, or we end up with a potential project and then we get sued again. So I think we need to take a few more steps before we sign on the dotted line as far as the scope of services is for this charrette. So I'm hoping that, you know, between now and the next meeting, you know, you all reach out potentially, you know, the commissioners who have appointed you, or the ones who you represent, and we, you know, have an open, honest conversation about, if we do move forward with this public charrette process, are we really going to abide by whatever comes out at the end of that, whether it be a small project, a medium project, a larger project? And then, you know, what are the financial implications for both us and for the city? Like I said, we all have, you know, financial obligations that we need to, you know, honor. And, you know, at this point, you know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, whether or not we could save what's there, whether we give some properties back to the city, whether we take the properties that we own and develop something, or whether we land bank it all. There's a lot of different balls that are kind of flying up in the air at this point, and none of it is made any easier, with COVID. But I did want you all to know that this is something that both me and have been working for. Also been that they're the ones who appoint you. I think those conversations would be very important for us before we move forward on spending $140,000. It's not something that to do. We had a meeting because of engagement. Go ahead. Thank you, Chair.
Well, this last one's one. Is there any comments from the board from or in general?
That's true. So I appreciate all we're doing, trying to figure out a path forward for L&M. I do think, I think you should develop the charrette and should talk to our commissioners, but I think there's a commission meeting to talk about the L&M project, since a number of the properties are owned by the city. If I could move forward by the city, putting a conversation of whether that's the idea they want to go forward with as a commission themselves. I don't know if a lot of these properties are not occupied. I'm not sure how I find it. I'll go check and envision that for individual.
I have a problem. If you've been to more charrettes than you can count here, right? Go to charrette, they do a study, they have $50,000, and we have this book. What day the should we This is a property. I don't need to say something about our staff on both CRA and city, or where we start in the afternoon and go into the evening, because we have got to have a sit-down, non-adversarial conversation about the downtown. I had a conversation with William Waters the other day, who's the head of our sustainable department, and I don't know if many of you know, the past number of years, part of my aim has been representing the property owners to the city with regards to small zoning or code enforcement, lien reduction, things like that. And I don't think the city has the opportunity to allow those buildings, which are deemed historic, to go into neglect, demolition by neglect. We wouldn't let a property owner do it. So when I spoke with Mr. Waters, he offered to have the engineers go in. It's about $250 a house, and see what those houses are going to shape really great. It's not the idea that someone's going to come and go, I want to get all these houses and move to my property down the street. It's not going to happen. So we really have to figure out, are these, and if any of you had opportunity to with the historical board, having to go before the board, it's not easy. So, but in one swoop, all these historical downtown buildings, we're like, go ahead and demolish them. If you can demolish them. So this is an opportunity for the city to come together with a creative idea about, we see not today, not tomorrow, not 5 years, not 25 years from now, what we left for our citizens. A couple of private investors and developers have approached me, I don't know if they've approached anybody else, about they understand that there's an issue and they'd like to take a look at it. And so I'm going to meet with them and see what their ideas are and if they're actually real. But in terms of timing, let's have a conversation and then decide with each other. How does that sound?
Well, to me, I think that conversation is necessary before we do that. So I would agree with it.
That was a long way of getting to agree.
Thank you. Drew, was that all you wanted to say about this topic?
I think so. And I appreciate the time factor in trying to make something happen. But I think it's all of us want to see something happen at those properties because they're just not where we want them to be right now, whether it's just because they're unoccupied. So the timing will be something that we all need to keep, stay vigilant on.
Thank you. Any member of the board want to talk about L&M?
This is Brent. I'll just say, as a person who is a consultant, and Mark, you probably sympathizes, I've definitely produced a share of $100,000 reminders of uses. I don't want to purchase one as part of the CRA. So I second Mayor Betty's comment. I don't think that cost, that charrette, is going to return the kind of the bang for the buck that we would hope for. I do want to get that community involvement, but that seems like too high for what we're looking to do. So that's just where I stand. I mean, a lot of things are starting to attention. I just agree with everything that Commissioner Drew said. The commission meeting and discussions and all those things are on the table, and I'm looking forward to, just like everybody else, finding a way to move the project forward.
Thanks, Brent. Carla or Leah, anything you'd like to say on this one? Okay. Yeah, I agree with the general flavor of those comments. I mean, I feel like it's tempting to feel like 3 or 4 years since similar properties and trying to head towards an RFP is, I don't know, some kind of effort that's sacred. It's really not a sunk cost. I think it's clear that I feel confident that Treasure Regional Planning Council, whether it's 140,000 or 10,000, would end up with the strategy captures the work everybody's energized about. And it's, even the size of the quote they gave you, Joan, I think reflects the fact that they know it's a tough time. They really reach everyone, but it's not just reaching everyone, it's trying to straddle the ideas and desires in a way that everyone's excited about. Personally, I wouldn't be in favor of a charrette, whether it was 14,000 or 100,000, because I honestly think we need to take a big step back, as long as it's not as long as it doesn't put us in legal trouble, David, with the RFP that we did. and I think we need to fashion a new RFP or not, or break up properties. But I think the project should board personally. Remember, I'm just one voting member. Not that I think a waste of time. I'm just not sure it can achieve the result that it would need to achieve. So personally, I think there's a lot of good to do and a lot of areas of the CRA. I don't see a path to success with that parcel assembly, and it hurts a little bit because I know it's a giant effort that was made, and I think we can find a way to move forward. But personally, I don't think it's keeping the RFP alive. I think it's starting back at zero and trying to fashion what might make sense, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 projects or no projects. That's just my personal thought. And when it comes back in front of the board, I know we're not voting on anything tonight, but I just wanted to make my feelings known since other people's, and I don't mean that in a snarky way. I just don't see a path to success. All right. I don't know, David, if the executive director's report is, if I should reach out to public comment for that. Is that like, I guess I'm kind of going to do whatever I want, right?
Yeah, typically there's no public comment on the executive report.
Okay.
Because it's not an action item.
All right. And we did hear from the mayor. I think that was what I wanted to hear from. Was there anything else, Betty, you wanted to say, or did that cover it? Okay.
Not about this, but I just want to give you a little bit about other things when you.
Oh, sure. Please.
But just let me know when.
Oh, no, you should do it now. I think it's a good time because we'll go to board comments next.
Okay, great. You were speaking earlier the Day of the Dead, and the Spanish American Chamber of Commerce is a very active and large and very interesting group. I've been going to their lunches or after work once a month. I'm going to join their group. And I brought Emily's letter to them last month at the dinner. And I said, listen, because they want to get their hand, they're trying to get a festival in Bryant Park. They're working with Lauren Bennett to get a date to do a Spanish, their festival. And so I'm really encouraging them to support the Day of the Dead. I'm trying actively to get them. I'm going to call them and go, hey, how about the Day of the Dead? Because I really want them, they want to get a foot in, and I think that would be a really good way because it's a great festival. So that's one thing that I want to do. Also, I want to let you guys know that we have just yesterday had the first meeting of the Tourism Master Plan group. This is a very exciting group. It's large. It's a big group. It's business owners, residents, people in the tourism business. The other commission had hired this, consultant about tourism, and I'm a little skeptical about consultants, but he seems to be good. So they had their first meeting last night, and it's really about branding the city, really about just, branding the city. Joan and I were at a presentation a couple of weeks ago, college kids did a PowerPoint as a class project, a PowerPoint presentation about tourism in Lake Worth. And so what we're trying to do, and I really appreciate Joan's efforts, and I hope we can have as much partnership, is to really bring the city around as a brand. The city, Marianne Weber, who for 28 years, God bless her, was the Street Painting Festival organizer, mentor, madam, has said, I can't do this anymore. But here it is. Here's the lists of artists. Here's the lists of vendors. Here's all the name plaques for the developer, for the donors. Here's the food truck. So she's being very, very gracious about that. We appreciate it. What that's done, however, is landed the Street Painting Festival in the lap of the city. And a couple years ago, financially, they had to cut a couple projects, a couple positions. So we're going to need a lot of help with the Street Painting Festival. It is something that we cannot let not happen. Lauren Bennett, who I'm getting to know. One of the things about being mayor, like all of a sudden I'm in City Hall, getting to know our staff and getting to understand them and the stresses that they're under, the amount of absolute dedication they have to this city is really remarkable. And I have to say that for all of our employees. Lauren Bennett is the head of leisure services, and she is like a workhorse. So she's the one that's come on her head now to figure out how to make this one. 100,000 people to your city. So, and I've been doing wine with the mayor. I know Herman does coffee with the commissioner, but I'm not an early morning girl. So second day of the month, across the street from the post office, it's called Using Marianne Bruce's Old Stores. It's a young couple that invested a lot of money, a lot of time and energy into our city, and it's called Sugar Pond and Grumpy Growl. On one side, it's a different bookstore, so you can get a drink, video games. So on the second Monday of every month, I'm just meeting people and we're talking. As a result, yesterday we had a meeting, just to get together, and I brought forms for people because we're going to do volunteers. And I felt like 15, 20 people, like, I want to help with the street painting festival, meeting them to forms. So the communication between staff and the city and the commission and the citizens is really something that we need to work on. So the tourism master plan is a work in progress to brand the city and actually work on tourism with the Gulf Stream, hopefully, God willing, opening, and getting built, we'll be in better shape. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, I'll come back to the board for board member comments. Oh, sorry, yes.
Maybe what I should do, do you want me to bring up as an agenda item, to schedule a workshop with CRA and the city commission? Joan can talk to the city clerk and work on that. Do you want to get that started? For like in October, first meeting of October, something like that?
I mean, personally, I'm all in favor of that. Joan, that sounds a good idea, right? Anyone else from the board have some thoughts about October? It's not that far away.
It's not. There are Halloween cards in Publix.
Right.
The world's
No, I
gone
think
mad.
it's a great idea.
Okay. All right. I'll bring it up. Joan, please remind me if I forget.
Thank
and
you.
Tomorrow we all head to the Florida League of Cities annual conference, and I'm going to learn a little bit more on how to do this. And I'll bring back as much knowledge as I can. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. All right, let's go through some board member comments. I'd like to start with you tonight, Leah.
If I can get off mute, that'd be awesome. Yeah, no comments made. Thank you. Good meeting.
Thank you. Drew, how about you next?
Thanks, Mark. So I just wanted to pay a compliment to Joan, Chris, and Emily. I was able to watch the city commission meeting and saw Joan basically do what will now become a quarterly update from the CRA to the commission. And I have to say we're winning. It was a very positively received commission meeting. The presentation that Joan did was just knock it out of the park. It was so, it just really showed how much the CRA contributes to the benefit. But it was really nice to see the city commission after the election we had, and the CRA being subject matter of the election, really embrace some of the effort and turn it into more of a collaboration. So I just wanted to share that with anyone who may have missed the commission meeting, but it was a wonderful thing to see from my perspective. So thank you, Joan and Emily, and Chris, for everything you do to try to move this forward.
I'm going to try in on that for a second, if I may. I'm going to
yes,
take my
please.
mayoral privilege. It is probably no surprise that when I got elected, Joan and I did not have a great relationship. We didn't know each other. And she was the first staff person I met with, and we sat down in her office, and like two big grown-ups, we discussed what about you, why this is what I don't like. We had a really good, frank discussion and have come to a wonderful understanding. And I have to tell you, it's a completely different atmosphere than it has been. I really have to commend all of you. Like, again, the four of us I really appreciate, but I have to commend, and Emily is of course a workhorse. I don't know Chris that much, but I can't tell you, and I'm spreading the word that the relationship between the CRA and the city is getting closer, and the relationship that Joan and I are developing is a really positive and fruitful. That's all.
That's great to hear. Let's move to you, Carla.
I just have two comments, actually. Thank you all for your participation in the wall project. We had the ribbon cutting and everything went really well, and we're very pleased with the entire project, and we're almost finished. The second question that I had was for the Casino Gulfstream presentation on the 19th. Is it going to be via Zoom as well?
Yes, it will be.
Okay. Okay.
And I can send you all instructions for that.
And also recorded so it can be watched later.
Okay. And then would you also have a way for people to make comments via Zoom, or would they be able to send the comments in and have someone to read them? Is there a way to increase public participation?
Unmute yourself, Betty.
Joan will have the link to send to you. There's a whole sort of web, I don't know if you're on Facebook or not, but a few of us have posted, there's a nice announcement about it, and there's a link that you can click on to do, send your questions in. I know beforehand, Joan, I'm not sure about during.
I don't think it's during, I think it's ahead of time.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. So please do. I mean, Amrit Gill met the other day with the group that I've been involved with, the Sunday group that was the L&M project people. And he met with them, and they're a tough crowd. So it was interesting to hear what he had to say. That's also available on YouTube. So, okay, I'll go right now again.
Thank you. What was that, Carla? Or was there some more?
It. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Brent.
Thanks, Mark. I just wanted to kind of parrot some of the earlier comments. I'm really enjoying the back and forth, having the mayor as our liaison. I think the communication channel was really positive, and it's only going to mean good things for the city. I'm proud of the way that my fellow board members have embraced, moving forward in conjunction with the city and trying to just put the residents and the city first, because I think that's where we're all standing. So also just wanted to give John Paxman one more shout out. So it was great serving with him, and glad we got to do that presentation today.
Thanks, Brent. For me, I'll echo some of the same things, and it was nice. I'm glad we postponed from July to make sure John can be here in person. That kind of recognition is important. We all donate our time on the board for the good of the city, and it's not for a plaque, but it's nice to be recognized and know that it counted or is remembered. That's it from me. And I'm sorry, David, I'm forgetting some of these protocols. Do we need a motion to adjourn, or do we just adjourn?
A motion to adjourn would be appropriate. Good seeing everybody.
You too, David. It gives me a chance to chat when I ask you questions. Is there a motion to adjourn?
This is Brent. Move adjournment.
I'll second. It's true.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
We'll see you next month.